certain that he didn't belong here, certain that today was the day they would finally prove it. They wanted to witness it. The moment Micah stumbled, faltered, embarrassed himself in front of everyone. They wanted to watch him humiliate himself, to see him confirm every single prejudice they had quietly harbored since he first walked into Jefferson Middle School. But when Micah Harper placed his hands on the keys of the old piano, what rose from his fingertips wasn't hesitation. It wasn't confusion. It was music, a melody so powerful, so vivid, it hushed the entire room. It wasn't just notes he played, it was a story. And for the first time, those who had spent years looking down on him were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Chapter 1. The Invisible Boy. Jefferson Middle School in Little Rock, Arkansas, was a place Micah Harper knew all too well. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't the class clown. In fact, Micah was one of the best students in the entire 8th grade, always turning in assignments on time, always sharp, always prepared. But it didn't seem to matter. No matter how hard he tried, there was a truth Micah could never escape. He was invisible. In the eyes of his teachers, Micah might as well have been a shadow. He was used to raising his hand high, eager to answer, only to watch the teacher's gaze pass him by and land on another student, usually a white one. If he waited, if he tried harder, they simply pretended not to see him. And if he made a mistake, God forbid, there was never a word of encouragement. No yentes mais. No soft try again. Only silence. A long, heavy silence. A silence that felt like a sentence. As if his mistake had confirmed everything they already believed about him. That he wasn't good enough. Micah didn't need anyone to say it out loud. He could feel it in the air, in the way his social studies teachers glossed over black historical figures while celebrating every white leader like a saint. He could feel it when he tried to share his thoughts on a painting during art class, only to be met with dismissive nods and quick changes of subject. When he spoke, they looked at him as if he was stepping out of line, as if he was challenging the very order they wanted to keep intact. But he never complained. He never caused trouble. Not because he didn't understand what was happening. He understood all too well. But his mother had told him once, the more attention you draw, the more reasons they'll find to hate you. Just do your part. So he did. Micah Harper stayed quiet. Chapter 2. The Trap. The worst part wasn't being ignored. It wasn't the favoritism. It was the feeling that they were waiting for him to fail. As if they needed him to mess up. As if they craved it. He felt it in every glance. Every hollow smile. Every pause. And then one day, it became clearer than ever. That morning was like any other. Micah sat by the window, flipping through his social studies book, racing to finish the last few questions before class started. He liked being prepared. It gave him control. And in a place where he felt powerless, control was everything. But then, Micah, came the voice of Mrs. Camden, the oldest history teacher in the school. Micah froze. Why was she calling on him? Why don't you answer this one? She said, her voice almost sweet. The class went quiet. Heads turned. Some surprised, some curious. He'd raised his hand 100 times and never been called on. Why today? Tyler, his only real friend in class, gave him a look that said, "What is going on?" Micah straightened, looked at the board. General Sherman's March to the Sea. Easy. He took a breath and answered, his voice even. It was a military campaign led by General William T. Sherman in 1864 to cripple the Confederate war effort by destroying their economic infrastructure. Silence. No one corrected him. No one laughed. But Mrs. Camden didn't nod or smile. She frowned. "HM. Not bad," she said, flipping her grade book closed. That was it. No, well done. No recognition. But Micah knew. He knew this wasn't just about answering a question. This was a setup. Chapter 3. The Challenge. The next day, Mrs. Camden made an announcement. "We'll be having a special performance tomorrow." "Micah," she said, her smile tight, "I understand your grandfather was a pianist. Perhaps you could play something for us?" The room buzzed. Tyler nudged him. "They've never cared about you. Now they want you to play." Micah understood perfectly. This wasn't an invitation. It was a test. A trap. They thought they had him cornered. They thought they knew everything about him, that he was just a kid who'd picked up a few tricks from his grandfather. But they didn't expect him to be good. They expected him to fail. Brandon, one of the richest boys in class, snorted from the back. "Oh man, you can actually play?" Micah said nothing. He didn't need to. He could refuse. But that would confirm their beliefs. He could accept, and he would decide how this game ended. Chapter 4. The Night Before. When he got home, Micah stared at his grandfather's piano in the living room. It was old, worn, but full of history. Full of stories. Full of him. He closed his eyes and let his fingers drift over the keys. He didn't need their approval. He played because it was his voice. And tomorrow he would speak. Chapter 5. The Performance. The next morning, the air was thick with anticipation. Micah walked into class, every eye on him. Brandon smirked. "Mrs." Camden smiled like she'd already won. Micah approached the old classroom piano. It was dusty, out of tune, but that didn't matter. He sat down, placed his hands on the keys, closed his eyes, and played. At first, it was a simple melody. Slow, gentle, a blues tune his grandfather had taught him. Then it built. Deeper, stronger. The room grew silent. Even Brandon stopped smiling. Tyler leaned forward wide-eyed. Madison, the quiet girl who never spoke, watched his hands in awe. "Mrs." Camden stood still, frozen, the smugness gone from her face. Micah kept playing, letting his music tell the story he had never been allowed to tell in words. A story of being underestimated. A story of struggle. A story of strength. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. When the last note faded, the silence lingered. Then one clap, then another, until the room was full of applause. Micah stood, met Mistress. Camden's eyes. She said, "Not bad," but no one bought it. Brandon muttered, "Not bad, Harper." Madison whispered, "That was amazing." And Tyler grinned. "You showed them." Chapter 7. The Shift. After that day, everything changed. Teachers hesitated before ignoring Micah's raised hand. Students who'd never spoken to him now nodded in the halls. At lunch, Madison sat with him. Tyler, too. They didn't gush. They didn't make it weird. They just accepted him. "Mrs. Camden?" She never smiled at him again, but she never ignored him either. Chapter 8. The Conversation. One afternoon, as the sun set, Mrs. Camden stopped him in the hall. "You think you've won," she said. Micah didn't flinch. "I'm not competing," he replied. "I'm proving the truth." She gave him a strange smile, almost respect. "Almost. Let's see how far you get," she said. Micah walked away, knowing he'd already gone further than she ever expected. Epilogue. The new Micah Harper. Micah didn't become the most popular kid overnight, but he wasn't invisible anymore. When he spoke, people listened. When he walked in, they saw him. He didn't need applause. He didn't need their validation. He had found his voice, and no one could take that away. Have you ever faced someone who didn't believe in you? What did you do to prove yourself? Share your story in the comments. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.